I am a man with many enemies.
The elevator opens for no one.
The Boston Red Sox.
And plans on making me.
The mayor of Boston. The governor of Massachusetts.
I'm paralyzed into you.
Boston Globe.
And plans on making me.
It's a war.
And plans on making me.
We're going to battle it out.
All sit there.
Everyone looks like everyone.
My dick's so big, doesn't even matter. He's 2 feet tall. And nobody will get in trouble. Now, of course, everybody's gonna kill each other. He's gonna fucking open his mouth, it'll fall right in.
You're too busy to accept it.
And it is going to be, when it's done, the most successful podcast in the history of mankind.
And we already met.
Listen, there's only 1 minute fan show.
Everyone looks like everyone.
It's right here.
And plans on making me. And plans on making me.
No protection.
All right, awesome fucking intro for John. Here we go. Danny, how's it going, buddy? 8 a.m. on a fucking Wednesday. Thank you, Oliver.
There we go. It's all about mission accomplishment, right, buddy?
Yeah, mission accomplishment. So let's start off. Elephant in the room. We're coming off our appearance in studio on Monday. Today's Thursday, by the way, too, guys. I'm sorry. I'm like a little fucked up right now as far as getting ready. So coming off our appearance Monday in studio with Kirk, how you feeling, man? How do you feel that went?
I had a great time. I mean, as I was called out on, I was definitely feeling a little nervous, completely flubbed up the game / EEI part.
No.
But you know,
wrong. The game was amazing. The game is that paper plate should be hanging in the fucking loop.
Well,
dude.
See, part of it was that wasn't really the game, but it kind of was, and I brought it up when he asked if it was the game, and I kind of couldn't get out of my own way. I'm hoping that it was hilarious enough for everyone.
Danny, when you pulled that fucking thing out, if Cullinane had a camera, like if there was a still shot of my face when you pulled that out of your backpack, it's just everything I ever wanted in life. It was fucking great.
I could feel it next to me. Well, I had a great time. I think, Kirk was awesome, of course. It was very gracious of him to invite us in. I think overall he was about as nice to us as he could have been. He could have been a lot harder on both of us.
Oh, yeah. I got a veto spatafor right in the beginning, and I wasn't expecting that. But, hey, what are you going to do?
I'll be honest. I was grateful for that deflection at the beginning. I'm like, all right, this is if he's going to start with the shots on Taver, I'm good for a little bit until I eventually dig my own grave, which happened about the hour mark. But no, it was just an awesome experience.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, and you did a great job, Daver. And you know what? I like how our fist pump went viral. You were there to support me in my time of need, and that'll never go unforgotten.
Oh, no worries, buddy. All right, so let's get into this episode. We're re-listening to The Making of Essie Robinson, I believe is the title, correct, Danny? This was on Kirk's birthday in 2019. What was the exact date, Danny? Do you have it in front of you?
Well, October 31st, 2019. The actual title is Kirk Minahan Makes Blind Mike Cry.
Okay, I'm sorry. So I always thought it was the Essie. I always called it the Essie Robinson episode. So thank you for correcting me there. I apologize. So Kirk Minahan Makes Blind Mike Cry. There's a lot to get to. It's a 3-hour episode. We are going to try to keep this in under an hour. So let's roll right into it. The first thing that jumped out at me, Danny, was just the names. Okay, like re-listening to this, the name drops in here again. This is like I was kind of fairly new on Twitter at this point. I wasn't ingratiated into the Twitter world. I didn't know a lot of these people, like as far as like character wise. So re-listening to this and hearing the voicemails of Happy Birthday and them saying who they are, and me now knowing them like personally and actually knowing them, just really fucking made me laugh. Really brought this episode to a new light, and it was awesome to hear. The first note that jumps out at me, Danny, is Steve was fucking awesome at drops. My God, was he way better at drops than Dave. No shot at Dave. I'm sorry, Cullinane. Yeah, dude, but like he was like Kirk would say something and bang, Steve would have a drop like right there at the ready. Did that, jump out at you at all or no?
With the exception of the first one, the Arlie Ernie, the Happy Birthday Jesus one, where I think he called him Ernie Hardy or whatever.
Steve has no concept of fucking pop culture.
That
was
the best part. So that was awful because Cullinane, I'm sure knows that one. He would have figured out. He would have got it going. But from then on, yeah, I mean, he was spot on. They were playing on time. Kirk never stepped on him, or vice versa. Like they never played over Kirk. Like it was the right thing at the right time. And yes, it was pretty fun to hear that Steve Kirk dynamic and how Mike fit in with that as well, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit more later. But yeah. Steve was spot on. And those voicemails were absolutely hilarious. I mean, there are some that I completely forgot about. I'm sure we're going to bring up some of the names in a bit. But yeah, there are some people who I did know who they were at the time, but now looking even back at them several years later, it's really funny to see the history of some of those people, either who have
and what happened to them,
either fallen off the face of the earth, or they're almost in our everyday lives now.
Yeah. So I do want to point out the time frame here. Okay, so this is October 31st, 2019. It doesn't seem like that long ago, but I do want to put. I know we do this at the end, but we're kind of going to do this in the beginning.
Okay.
This is 6 months before COVID. Okay, COVID was March of 2020. This is a week before the vigil. The vigil is going to happen that weekend. That's Saturday. I had just started at 110 Grill. I had left Potbelly. I remember because I desperately wanted to go to the vigil. I was so into this show at this point. Like, I was hardcore. Like, this was as soon as the episode, I was mad if the episode was a minute late dropping. This is when, like, you just need it. It was like drugs. Like, I needed it in my veins. And if I saw less than 3 hours, I'd be upset. Like, it was crazy. And I just remember, like, being pissed because I just started a new job and I couldn't go to the vigil. What were your thoughts? Do you have a time frame of you remembering, like, where you were during this time frame at all, Danny?
I do, and it's funny, Dave. I think this whole kind of putting time frames in it, because I do this in everyday life now. Where did something happen in relation to COVID? Was it was it current day, or was it somewhere in the middle of that craziness? I think we're probably going to see that a lot with these episodes. In this case, as you mentioned, it was pre-COVID, so it was sort of the before times. I was in my current job, but it's a very different setup that I'm in right now. I have two things. One is, as everybody knows, I always have excuses about not getting to live shows as much as I always want to be at them. This one was my mother-in-law's birthday. My mother-in-law birthday party was that weekend, and I actually have I have a very specific recollection of driving down a specific road in Billerica, getting ready to get on the highway, as Blind Mike started crying. And I actually remember the specific house that I was driving by when he started to cry, because I was just like, where the fuck did this come from? So that part just kind of seared in my brain as I was heading down to the South Shore.
Yeah, it's crazy how, like, you listen to something and, like, music usually does this for me. Like, a song will bring back, like, a moment in time for me. But like, listening to these episodes, I'm literally remembering, like, where I was, what was happening. What was maybe not necessarily that day like you, but what was happening in my life like that week. So it's interesting to have that seared in there. So the top of the episode, Danny, starts with Brian Riccio and George Rotunda City Council meeting. So let's start there. I hated Brian Riccio. I hate Brian Riccio. He's an online troll. I'm glad he's gone away. Kirk's tone in this episode is way different than what he is now. I mean, the meat, like, you could tell Kirk was still battling these guys. He was fighting these guys. They were still going at advertisers on Barstool. His whole focus of the show at this point was fighting these trolls. Riccio, Murchison, people of those ilk, the Shirleys were still in his life. So it's so weird to hear that aspect of Kirk doing that, where now it's like, it's a true comedy show. Like, he goes in there and he talks topics and he makes jokes, and like that, the tension in his voice really isn't there anymore the way it used to be. And you could tell how much he, hated Pete. Like, he had hate in his heart, man, like real hate. And Riccio was just a guy that, man, Danny, if I ever saw someone like that in real life, like, it's on, as the kids say, it's on site. Like, he was such a fucking prick, even online. What do you remember of that era?
Yeah, it's a good point, Dave. I think that I agree. I think, you could tell. I mean, Kirk was girded up for battle. It was in the middle of this craziness, and you can hear it because Shirley Leung gets brought up as how she's really good friends with Riccio. She's working behind the scenes. Murchison's tied in with all this stuff, but you never hear from these people directly, or rarely, because they don't have the balls to get out and say something. I guess Riccio is maybe the slight exception to that, because, like you said, you'd see him at these rallies. I know Boy had a lot of interactions with him.
Sorry, Blind Mike almost got physical with him, if I remember, a week or two before at the Woburn,
the courthouse.
The courthouse, yeah. Like, and it's just funny to remember blind fucking Mike, getting in someone's face is fucking awesome.
So he's actually someone who would show his face, but I know like Turtle Boy's had run-ins with him several times over the years and whatnot. So he's definitely been somebody who's been out and about. But
yeah, but he shows his face, Danny, and he wants you to hit him or whatever, so he can sue you or have you assaulted. Like someone like that isn't about it, as people would say. It's more of like he's trying to bait you into doing something to get you in trouble, either at jail or something like that,
Well,
which is even more annoying.
Completely. He's obviously a total dummy. Here's the thing, like, and I think Kirk even gives both, maybe not as much Shirley, but definitely Murchison. I mean, they're not stupid people. I mean, they may be terrible people who've done awful things, and nobody wants them around, including, it sounds like their own families in a lot of cases. But the fact is, Riccio sounds more like a henchman. He's just a big dummy who goes online and tries to bully people, makes points that make no sense, shows up to events, like you said. He wants them to assault him so he can get on the front page and, be a martyr.
So let's get back to, the city councilman, I want to say, is the town Somerville? Am I wrong there, Danny? Or if I'm wrong there, folks, you'll correct us. His name is George Revere. Okay. Thank you, Danny. George Rotunda, city councilor. He's giving like a thing. And I guess Riccio had been harassing his children online.
Yep.
As a way of getting to him, as a way of maybe like, I don't know, he
like
didn't
his
like
daughter specifically.
His daughter specifically, and he basically threatens. He tells the council meeting, he goes, "I'm going to fucking hit that guy," like, or not in so many words, but he drops an F-bomb in his city council meeting. He gets reprimanded, and honestly, I didn't blame the guy. I mean, like, you're going after someone's kids for political shit, like, you should get smacked up. Like, that's
well,
just
Daver, I now have 2 kids. So
fucking Oliver.
I don't know if you knew that. So it is one of those things that when I'd hear people before I had kids talk about, if they go after my kid, like I'm going to beat the shit out of them. And I'd say, yeah, I bet I'll feel like that when I have kids. Now that I have kids, I feel that way a million times more. Like that daddy protective, wrath, sheet takes over. And I think it was clear in that guy's voice in his little talk. And yeah, he said, look, you get near my daughter again, I'm gonna beat the shit out of you. And, Kirk is like, I'm glad he didn't, because as much as I'd like to see it happen, that guy's going to lose his job. He doesn't have the financial backing or the personal backing that I do as Kirk Minahan. This guy's completely fucked if he beats this guy up. So, don't do it. But at the same time, the fact he at least got out and said it, and it was such an emotional moment in that talk.
Oh yeah. On record at a city council meeting. Yeah.
Yeah. So I liked that they played it on the show. I thought that was just that perfect intersection of, politics and revenge, and just sort of making sure that, not that it's the Callahan show, of course, but just making sure that, they kind of brought that across, that emotion. So I thought, well played.
So let's get into some calls here. It was Kirk's birthday. They called Dale Arnold. All right. This is after the Bowden stuff with Steve. So if people remember that, this is after. He does answer. Steve goes, this is Steve Robinson, Bowden colleague or whatever, and Dale hangs up right away. This is when Kirk really hated Dale. Like, he was not a fan of Dale. He, called him the worst person at EEI. It's so biggest asshole. It's so funny to see the ups and downs that Kirk has had with Dale over these 4 years, where he'll be mean to him, he'll be like, he's actually not that bad. I don't hate him that much. So, but at this point, he was way down on him.
And there's no question. I noted that as well, because he did. He just, I mean, it was one of those things where obviously they called him up, Steve Robinson, Bowden class,
Bowden class.
You're the beep, beep, beep. You don't, nothing makes it actually onto the podcast if he actually said anything at all. It kind of warms my heart a little bit though, Daver, when Kirk does sort of turn around on somebody,
Me too.
And look, and is Dale ever going to be in studio?
No.
I don't think, no, he's not going to be on studio, but maybe as some boy, he'll be on the phone for a minute somewhere down the line. Who knows?
I'll be honest with you, Danny. I would love for every live show that I've been to, in Portland, he called Dale, Wilbury called Dale. I would love if Dale could be playful, and maybe at this live show in Plymouth, maybe Dale calls in or makes a video or something like that. Like, that would be pretty cool to see. I think that'd be a nice little turnaround.
There was a hint of that. Remember? Do you recall before?
No,
I think it was before Portland. Kirk said on one of the shows that he did actually have a conversation with Dale, And he asked him, this is when Dale, he's now retired, but he still does some stuff with Nesson. And Dale said something along the lines of, I don't think my employer would like that very much. But it sounded like Dale himself was somewhat open to being playful with it at this point, if it makes sense.
But then he got a fuck you call.
Thing. Yeah, but you know what? I think maybe he's softened up a little bit, just like John Dennis. I mean, since he's retired and he's away from the fray, maybe he's chilling out in his old age. I don't know. I loved all these EEI guys, and this is one of the reasons I was so frustrated I didn't have a better EI question.
Oh, what a choke job, Danny! What a fucking choke job!
I already said it was the biggest choke job of all time.
Right,
but I was a 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. listener for years of EEI. It was pathetic.
Yeah.
All my friends made fun of me. As much fun as they make of me now for how much I love KMS, I get shit on all the time. I was Mr. EEI. I had it on in the car. I had it on my phone. I had it on everywhere, anywhere I could if I wasn't in a meeting. So I love John Dennis. I loved listening to not just John, but I loved listening to all those guys.
The whole cast. Yeah, the whole cast.
They were like my home away from home. It was completely sad and pathetic, but it's kind of what I knew. And so, I like when those guys get back in the fold, whether it's somebody like a Mutt or even like a Lou Merloni or a Fourier. Like, just it's fun to see those guys around, or Ordway, that kind
of thing. All right. So the next thing I want to get into, Danny, that caught my attention is the Roman ad read. And this is where, I don't know if you caught this, I think this is where we start to see the Kirk, Minahan, and Roman divorce happening, okay? Because up until this time, they were like the main fucking sponsor. Kirk even said it. They were the first ad read. They were there since day one of the KMS so far. And Steve Robinson lets slip, because Kirk says, hey, can Roman cure cancer? I don't know. Kirk throws one of those. He goes, I don't know. I'm not saying they can. I'm not saying they can't. And then Steve, tried jokingly, but you could tell a little serious, goes, they do really just kind of want us to stick to the ad read. Because Kirk is doing performance art with these ad reads at this point. Yeah. He's really going way more than he does now. Way fucking more than he does now. Not saying he doesn't do good ad reads now, but he is he's putting it as part of the show. They're Getro Man. I mean, they're all in, right? So, and then as we do know, I mean, if people don't know out there, Roman did leave KMS, if I'm not mistaken, because of medical sort of hey, we can't, am I correct there, Danny?
I think
do you remember that?
At least, I don't know if it was ever explicitly put out on the show. Maybe this is a Cullinane question.
Exactly.
For the next one, since he did such a nice job. We appreciate him answering some of our questions from last time. But yeah. I believe it was something along the lines of, Kirk said maybe one too many times, hey, if you swipe this on your cock, you're not going to get cancer, and your partner's cancer will go away, and you'll never get AIDS ever again. I mean, it started to get so ridiculous that it was such hyperbole. We all knew it was a joke, but also I've worked enough in the corporate world knowing that you start doing that on a podcast with thousands and thousands of listeners. If the wrong person hears it, or if the wrong thing happens, or especially when you start to get into medical shit, God forbid something happens and they go back, lawyers will find anything. And if they find, well, you guys are doing this ad read that said it cured cancer, we're going to sue your pants off. So there was definitely a lot of liability there. But yeah, I definitely noted that I thought it was a very well balanced scolding from Steve, trying to say, Kirk, stay on track, but also sort of trying to be tongue in cheek.
He giggled, he laughed, but you could tell he was being serious. Yeah.
And that's only going to send Kirk in the other direction. And I think that's, like you said, that it just went downhill from there. By the way,
I think this,
I want one correction I wanted to make. When I talked about Trump being on the balcony having sex with his wife, when I brought it up on KMS, he was inferring that it was Jerry Callahan having sex on the balcony, but he switched out his Roman swipes for powdered munchkins, and that's why apparently things didn't work out well.
Yeah. So let's get into powdered munchkins. You brought it up on the show a little bit. Kirk got birthday presents from the boys. Imagine now, Mike coming in with a box of Happy Thoughts.
He would get.
Oh my God. You'd get. I mean, you could tell Kirk wanted to kill him, but kind of laid off a little bit. It's just such a bad instinct at this point by Mike, who probably doesn't know Kirk still as well. It's only been 4 or 5 months. But I'm sitting there going, oh, Michael, what is that? What are you doing?
It's almost as terrible as bringing a paper plate with a Mercedes emblem painted on it.
Almost.
Because the one that Kirk read was so bad. It was, happiness lives forever. Shit like that. These days he would have destroyed it. Now I wonder if it was because something comes up later in the episode where he was concerned about Blind Mike's mental health. If you didn't want to jump all over him when it was birthday.
He says, thanks, buddy. And you can tell it's all right. Yeah, this is This is idiotic.
And Steve actually did bring in the Munchkins. I know I said
Munchkins. Yeah, Steve brought in Munchkins, thinking that was going to be funny. Yeah, thinking that was going to be funny. Yeah, it was a tough scene. Yeah, tough scene. So the first name that jumps out, Danny, when we're doing this is they start talking about Smugsy. Cynthia Dill is Smugsy, correct? Am I right there?
That's correct.
Okay. So she, I think, was on the show either the episode before or a couple episodes before. And then Murchison, I believe, must have reached out to her. Mm-hmm. Something was happening on Twitter. And I quote, Steve Robinson goes, yeah, this Mayo guy on Twitter, he's really like, badgering and her or working with her. Like, I couldn't tell the whole context, but it is the first time you hear the decrepit name, the decrepit face of fucking Andy Mayo on KMS. I was taken aback when I heard this. Because no one knew who Andy was. They're like, yeah, he's really annoying online. Like, I think it was Blind Mike who said that. And I audibly laughed out loud, knowing where Andy is now. And they couldn't tell if Andy was an enemy or a friend, which, it came to be. He was a fucking, absolute, he went in the hater category for a while until, Steve murdered him, obviously. And now he got his belly rubbed and he's back like a little doggy, kissing ass.
He's a big Quantum Kirk fan.
Yeah.
So he was watching our show.
So shout out Andy. But yeah, so Andy, first mention of Andy Mayo on KMS, I would say was this episode.
It must have been. And it reminded me looking back, hey, look, we've been doing this shit. We have been doing this shit for 4 years. Like, the fact these personalities are still around really cracks me up.
Yeah. But, they nailed it. They couldn't tell if he was an enemy or a friend. Yeah. And at that time, you didn't know. Yeah.
And we still kind of wonder sometimes. And they were trying to get Cynthia back on the show. Yeah, I think it was a Murchison thing. But Cynthia Dill, I saw they did. Yeah. And then I saw on Twitter last night, she put on an episode last night that mentions Kirk Minahan. So
yeah. Oh, she's way in the world. Like, but she's another one though, who like was like, oh, this, that. And now she just, she wants the attention. She mentions Kirk all the time. She shows up at live shows because people take a picture with her. I mean, she's a crazy fucking broad. That is a crazy middle-aged lady. Crazy.
She likes to remind us she was almost a Maine senator.
Yeah, that's God damn it. That's wild. But yeah, so like hearing her actual name, and them actually wanting to call her and engage with her, and seeing how much of a loony bin she is now is an interesting thing to see. And her and Andy Mayo teaming up. I mean, what a fucking world this is.
I like those guys, though. I mean, they're crazy. They're harmless, though. But they're fun. They're not like a Murchison. They're not trying to actually, cause harm.
Well, I think Kirk at this point didn't know if she was harmless. Yeah,
right. And he had to be cautious, and he was. Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing that jumps out at me, Danny, is they have a sponsor. So the second ad read is mysportsbookie.net. I forgot to write it down. Blind Mike is picking football games on this episode.
I totally forgot about this.
Oh, yeah, me too. What a crazy sponsorship. Kirk couldn't even be bothered to I'm not going to pretend I'm gambling. Mike, you're going to go ahead and pretend you're gambling. And Mike's lock of the week and all this stuff. And I am laughing my ass off. So Mike's lock of the week was the Patriots Sunday night against the Ravens. Okay. Yep. This is the last season of Tom Brady, so I want people to go back to those times. The Patriots were 8-0 at the time. They were -3.5 against Baltimore. I went back and looked. They thoroughly got beaten. It was their first loss of the season. So Mike lost his lock of the week. The Patriots lost to the Ravens 37-20.
37-20. They got bludgeoned.
Yeah.
Yep. November 3rd.
Yeah. November 3rd. Yeah. Oh, you looked it up too? Okay. Awesome. Yeah.
I was like, I know, because I think we have to go back and look at Mike's record, because as much as we've made it very clear, we're on the record. We both love Blind Mike. We're both huge gearheads.
Yes.
He was not doing well at picking games. I mean,
I
want to say he started 1-5 or something.
Well, it's funny because Kirk was adamant that he didn't watch sports. Mike was doing the Kirk thing where he's like, I don't watch sports either now. You know what I mean? Doing that deal.
And myfreebookie.com or whatever must have just been cringing, thinking, oh my God, we're just throwing away our money here.
I mean, imagine now getting that's a website that would sponsor Montante right now. You know what I'm trying to say? It's weird to hear them as a sponsor at KMS, but hey, you pay the money, you pay the money. So that made me laugh. John, do you have the first birthday message? I'd like to play that if you're there. We're at that part of the episode now.
Gotcha, buddy.
Thanks, man.
Assured, like, well, she's on our side now.
It never works
But
that
yeah,
way.
never.
Never.
I guess so.
So we're not doing the pick today, right? On the show?
Yes,
we are.
We're gonna get, his
we
lock
are.
is going to, Mike's lock is going to be on the show.
Okay, gotcha. We'll do that in a second. Give me a happy birthday wish, would you? Please. Thank you.
Dear Kirk, if you're hearing this, you've gotten out and away from the tyranny and cowardice of David Field and Sam Kennedy.
Who is this?
And if you've
Ren.
come this far, maybe you're willing to come a little further. Just a little further now, and you'll have Bob Murchison behind you. You remember it's your birthday, don't you? Remember that there are many that support you and love you today. I'll keep an eye out for you here on the beaches of Maine. Remember, Kirk, hope is a good thing, maybe the best of things, and no good thing ever dies. I will be hoping that this message finds you and finds you well. Your friend, Red from Maine.
Kirk Minahan crawled through a river of shit. Came out clean on the other side.
Mercer will be contacting Castle Rock for that theme. Well, thank you, Red. I appreciate that. Very nice.
So I was, once again, man, I was not huge in the Twitter world. I wasn't in the 14. I was mostly a listener. I had no clue who Red from fucking Maine was. I was like, why is this guy called? Like, I would listen to these episodes, try to piece together what was going on Twitter, Danny, and what was happening on the show. And hearing that, once again, like, I just laughed my ass off. Is that why he's Red? Is because, like, he pretends to be the Morgan Freeman? I never knew why he was Red from Maine. So maybe, Red, you can answer this. Danny, do you know this? Because I was, like, geeking. I was like,
I'm
that
assuming
makes sense
so.
now.
I didn't realize Red was around that early in that capacity.
Me neither.
I mean, he's such an all-star basketball player. I know John knows all about that. So he may know some more information on that, but
you.
That's a good John. Don't ever let Menners tell you're fucking not producing the show. Fuck that little fucking tyrant. Okay, that was a great.
I was trying to come up with a good pop in to say fuck you to him, but you know what? This one's perfect. Fuck you. That was to you. That was to Danny. That was to fucking Menners.
Yeah.
Fucking, yo, I had the same question though about Red. I didn't know if he got his name first, but he was also the one that ran the Reddit too. So
okay. Oh, so that's probably it. That's probably it then.
So Menners, that's why I pop in here, because I got smart little facts, you tiny little cunt.
Yeah, we'll talk about that at the end. But yeah, so Red from Maine, hearing his name, I never knew like how, like, you know, he was into the world already. It's very, very cool, very weird to hear, and Kirk obviously found it very funny. So yeah, like, what was your thought process here in that, Danny? So you didn't know that he was already in the world so early?
No, that was one of those, like, listening back, I'm like, holy shit, that's because even as he started reading it, I recognized Red's voice at first.
Red's
of course,
voice,
you make the connection, like, oh, you know, it makes sense with the movie and everything. But yeah, I don't know if that was his introduction or not. But yeah, hopefully, you know, where are they now? Would love to hear from Red. Maybe he can pop in and give us some background on that. But
yeah, I mean, John, good luck with that show.
It was a great
bit.
It was a great bit,
yeah.
Well produced, and you know, I like the music, and obviously the tie-in with one of Kirk's favorite movies worked out well.
Yeah. So the next thing, that the big part of the episode was the Brandon Walker shoving match. So listening back to that, if people don't remember, he shoved a producer. I want to say the kid was a producer. His name was Devlin. I'm not sure if he's still with the company or not. If he is, sorry, you know, obviously I don't hear his name much. And they're talking about Brandon Walker. They're talking about, like, if it was a regular office, would Brandon get fired? He wasn't even suspended. And then it was funny. They were talking about, you know, who Brandon Walker was. Like, why is he in the company? You know, and then Mike is like, oh, I think he's like a football analyst from somewhere, and he was down south. And like, they didn't know the origin story of Brandon Walker. This is where, like, me being a Barstool fan, I was like, going crazy. And like, usually Mike is really good with the Barstool stuff, so I was kind of shocked that Mike didn't know the Brandon Walker origin story.
And the fact that Brandon Walker had been around that long already, once again I was like, holy shit, he's been here that long. Like, I would have said Brandon Walker started during COVID, because they found him during that gambling show, right, when everybody was bombarding the comments and making fun of him.
Yep.
And
that's how he got hired.
And that's when they said, all right, we're hiring you. I thought he was doing that gambling show streaming during COVID, and I figured that's how they found him. So the fact that all that happened back in 2019 because
pre-COVID.
And it is funny because it's like that you have this Barstool issue where every year or two some assault thing comes up and somebody doesn't get fired. I mean, look at the High Noon and Rico, and it's like every time
a shove is nothing at Barstool. Like Rico almost literally killed the fucking guy.
Well, but the shove connected though. The shove connected versus the High Noon, which
true.
If that had connected, it may have
point.
been a different deal. But it's always this conversation that comes up every few months. Just like Dave dropping the N-word. It's like, well, if this was a real workplace, well, A, it's not, and B, it's not.
Hey, by the way, were you a little disappointed Rico didn't call during our episode? Do you think he doesn't like us? He has me blocked. He has me blocked, and I don't even know what I did. So I think that he's known to not he doesn't call when Montante's in because obviously Montante's friends with Nadu.
He knows. I'm sure he has no idea who I am. I don't think I've never said a word to him in my life. I actually like his.
I like Rico.
Calls.
I like Rico
he's
a lot.
grown on me a lot,
so.
and I like the new Rico. I think I think he's doing well. He's kind of on his redemption tour, and I think he's been doing a good job. I'm sure he has no clue who I am. It's possible he's not calling because he associates you with Montante, which I can't even remember why he doesn't like Montante because Montante
with Nadu. Well, no, Montante in West Virginia for Rough and Rowdy, pretended he was a Rico fan and found out Rico was there and then told everybody that Rico was he gave away the Rico secret as he gave away the Kirk coffin secret.
Oh, I don't
so
think
Rico Rico was going to jump out of a coffin and surprise Nadu before his fight with Jersey Jerry. And Montante ruined that surprise. He went and told Nadu that Rico was there.
Wait, Montante's really that much of a chatty Cathy?
Well, no, I mean, he was friends with Nadu. He was there for
I get it, but why do you tell everybody that?
Because he's boys with Nadu. He was in Nadu's corner. And Nadu and Rico are enemies at the time.
But why did he give away the surprise?
He's with Nadu. He went and told Nadu. He's buddies with him. How are you not understanding that? That one I get.
Oh.
He saw Rico in the hallway at the hotel. And he went up to him and started talking college basketball with him. Hey, how do you think Rutgers is going to do? Blah, 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 blah. This, that, and the other. And, and hey, what are you here for? There's this, that, whatever, pretending he was a Rico fan and then went to Nadu and was like, hey, Rico's here and he's going to do, some surprise or whatever. And it started going around the arena. So, yeah. So that's why he hates Montante.
Is that
but
real?
That's real, dude. That's real, dude. Mike is
did he also snitch on Kirk for popping out of a casket? Didn't Kirk do is that two?
Yeah,
people?
That's two caskets. Two caskets. Yeah, that's two caskets.
Anything casket related?
This guy.
But once again, the first one I totally condone. He's he's there for Nadu, so he sees Nadu's enemy. He's gonna let him know. I mean, that's. I see that as perfectly reasonable.
Yeah,
maybe that's what
serial spoiler. He's a serial.
Only with caskets.
Things.
Yeah. Only with caskets. Yeah. Don't let Mike around the Undertaker.
Or don't let him at a funeral. Hey, guess who's in the casket? Your mom.
Jesus. All right. So we got off topic a little bit, but I just found that Rico didn't call. We were there, so I was like, "Hey, Rico, unblock me. I was a fucking rider back in the day. What the fuck?" Anyway, another enemy, a friend then that now becomes an enemy that leaves a happy birthday, Danny. Brandy Love. Mm-hmm. I forgot about Brandy Love.
Yep.
She calls us mini fans, which I always find.
I always liked that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because most of us are not mini.
No, as you can see. Vito Spatafor here, checking in. All right. So I think my favorite part of the episode is coming up, Danny. I know everyone. The blind Mike crying, Essie Robinson. This part, I don't want to say favorite. I mean, it's more overlooked. Hearing back, listening back to it. And John, I think I asked you to pull this sound, right?
Yeah.
The Mutt sound.
Oh, the Mutt sound. No.
Do you have the Mutt?
This is Mike.
Okay.
No,
so
I
you
don't
missed
have
this.
the Mutt sound. I can get
okay,
it.
no worries.
Yeah. Just do the do Mike, and we can do that at the end. I'll grab it right now. I'll look through.
All right. So do you have the timestamp of the Mutt sound?
If it's in the text. If not,
it's in the text.
Okay.
It's in the text. Okay. So we'll do. All right. So we'll do Mike. We'll do Mike, and then we'll come back to Mutt because the Mutt part is overlooked, Danny. Listening back, I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
So let's get it. Mike starts crying. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Steve and Kirk call out Mike. Now, Steve and Kirk argue about who called who to complain about Mike.
Which was hilarious.
This is hilarious. And I believe Steve. I'm sorry, Kirk. I actually believe Steve. I think Kirk is diabolical. I think Kirk called Steve to start tension between Steve and Mike because Kirk likes that shit.
Kirk admitted that Steve called him.
No. Steve texted Kirk, and then Kirk called him back.
Oh, true. But and Steve didn't refute that part. It was everything else.
It was everything else.
Yeah.
They both say that they both claim that the other one said that Mike was not as good on the show anymore since he got his contract. But at this point, I think Blind Mike had signed a contract for Barstool Sports. He's an official employee of. He was coasting, getting fat. Like they literally say it to his face. I was just like, wow, how times have turned. You know, Mike. You know, after he came back, Kirk has definitely played with kid gloves with Blind Mike.
Yeah,
which is good.
Yeah,
sure. But fuck you, Danny. So they do argue about who initiated the spanking, but they both agreed. They both end up agreeing that Mike is just not doing good at the moment. And they ask him what's going on. Is there something personal? And John, go ahead, cue this up. Sorry, Blind Mike, but we got to play this.
What happened? You are correct. I corrected the record. I'm happy to do that. I called you after you texted me. I was driving, so I called them back. We talked about a bunch of other shit. They said, oh, by the way, do you think this is going on with Mike? He's put on weight, da-da-da. And I said, I don't know. I'll think about it. I've thought about it. And I'm like, geez, Mike does seem a little down lately.
If I've put on weight, what's
a sign of that you're maybe going through? Just maybe another added thing that you seem like you might be able to. That happens to people.
Well, can I do more with the show? Because I'm happy to correct that.
We'll think about it. But the point is, what are you down about? You break up with your girlfriend?
No.
So what's going on?
Nothing really.
I was wrong, Steve. He's been a rocket lately. Forget it.
Nothing I want to talk. I told you.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, I did.
Off the air?
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus, come on.
It's fine.
Jesus. Actually, I don't even know what you're talking about, but.
Good genuine care from the boss.
Oh, the reason that your mom made. Okay,
yeah.
I got you. Yeah. Well, get over it. What, are you crying now? Are you crying?
No.
Are you crying? He's fucking crying.
No, he's not crying.
Yes, he is.
No, he's not.
No, yes, he is.
No,
What
he's
are
not.
you crying about?
Nothing. Don't worry.
You can cry. It's okay. We're men here. It's okay to cry. Talk to me. What's going on? What's going on?
Nothing.
Stop saying nothing. What? Your grandmother's sick, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's sad. I understand that. It's all right, buddy. Jesus, we all go through stuff. What's going on with her? You feel like an asshole now, Steve?
It's not.
How am I supposed to be the asshole in this situation?
Because you're wearing a yellow shirt. That's why. You're like fucking Charlie Brown.
Oh, what a pussy. No, it's fine. Everything's fine.
Well, no, everything's not fine. We could talk. We talk about things here.
Yeah, if you have my grandmother has breast cancer. She's gonna be fine though, I guess. So,
yeah.
So it's all good.
Is Julia Rose paying for her bills?
I think so. Yeah.
Is she? Well, it's good. Everything's gonna be okay though.
Yeah.
It's your mom's mom.
Yes.
How old is she?
Early 70s.
Yeah. Well, that's terrible. Well, there you go. See, that seems like a reasonable explanation, Steve. Dick.
Oh man, so uncomfortable. I listened to it last night. Listening to it right now. Kirk, you could tell he thinks it's crazy for Mike to be that upset over his 70-year-old grandmother. He tries to be nice. It is, shout out Mimo. I think she's still here. And that did spawn, my good friend Keith's Mimo account, which, everyone, who's been to live shows has met Mimo. He's a prick. So just so you know, shout out Keith. But yeah, it's crazy to hear that and hear how uncomfortable Mike was trying to deflect. Oh, everything's okay. No, I'm fine, while he's crying. I don't think it was Mimo. I think Mike was like really going through it at the time. I think Mike was, really, he got a lot of shit on the show. He got a lot of shit online. So yeah, I hearing back the difference between Mike then and now, how much more confident he is, how much better off he is. It is a good thing to see, to be totally honest with you.
This was just a pure encapsulation of Kirk's innate talent and ability to, this is like, we talk about how he's such a great interviewer. It's that second or third level of just being able to read someone and know there's something going on. I mean, the fact that the way he attacked it, yeah, he was kind of joking / being a little bit of an asshole. Steve played into it perfectly.
Yeah.
Like, that dynamic was spot on. They're joking. They're kind of making fun of each other. Kirk's calling Steve.
Steve's like, no, he's not. Steve goes, no, he's not.
The order is Kirk asks him, Mike won't tell him. Mike starts crying, and then Kirk gets it out of him. And then, like, he gets it out of him when he's in the middle of a breakdown, and Steve is just like, "You're a fucking monster. You're a monster."
Yeah.
At that point, that was Colonel Jessup admitting to the code red. At that point,
good call,
Kirk was Tom Cruise, love him or hate him. You know, at that point, he was just pulling it out, and that's at that moment it hit, and you could tell Kirk's like, all right, we got something here. You know, I kind of feel a little bit bad that this guy's crying, but this is fucking podcast gold.
Yeah, this is content. Yeah, 100%.
Baby.
Content, baby. It's Steve. Then they continue to go back and forth about arguing. Kirk and Steve, now do you feel like an asshole? Was a great fucking line when Kirk orchestrated. Kirk fucking orchestrated. Yeah, it was fucking
Steve,
great.
You made Blind Mike cry. What an asshole.
Yeah, it's just Steve going, he's not fucking crying. Stop. It was fucking gold. It was gold. So sorry, Mike, that we had to play that, but we're much better that Mike is in a good place now too. Shout out Blind Mike. We arc your heads here. So, but you could tell, man, the difference between Mike then and now. How he was so wanted to please everybody, didn't know which way to go. You could tell Steve, the dynamic of Steve and Mike. Like, Cullinane was the best thing to happen to Mike because Mike, I don't know if he feels superior to Cullinane, but he definitely feels on Cullinane's level. He definitely feels like he's with him. Whereas I think Steve felt like, and Mike felt like Steve was his boss. And that probably was the pecking order, because Mike ran, when he was working for them, Mike ran socials, Steve would give him stuff to do. So, and Steve would talk down to Mike at times. So I do think that dynamic of having Kirk and Steve kind of always shitting on him was not great for Mike at the time.
There was some of that, although I will say this episode was a case. You look and you judge a lot of episodes based on the moods people are in, right? This episode, Kirk was in a great mood. Steve was in a great mood. He was in a self-deprecating mood. He would not have played, when we're going to get to Essie Robinson and Tom Hartman, he would not have played that clip. Steve wouldn't have if he wasn't feeling happy and great that day. So that dynamic was still, I agree with you. There were times where there was very much kind of Steve beating on Mike. And I think we see it later. This was still where Mike was still, we're all still kind of new to the podcast. Mike was still sort of learning, getting his feet under him. I think he did very well in this episode because I think the energy was high. Everyone was happy. Overall, it was positive. Even the crying part and the part with him bearing his heart. If it had been a shitty episode, if he had been doing bad, if Kirk was in a bad mood, if Steve was, piling on, and then it gets to that, then it just goes downhill. There was enough of kind of, everyone was riding high enough where it played in this episode and it worked out well.
Where it didn't come off super mean.
6 months, if this happened 6 months later, that may have been a different story as Mike got closer to his hiatus.
Yeah. So I just love Blind Mike's line of like, what does me gaining weight have to do with anything?
Yeah.
He was just like, what can I do better, boss? Like it was fucking crazy to hear. It was crazy to hear.
I'm gonna put,
whenever you're ready.
All right.
You have the Mutt clip? Okay. Yeah. So let me set it up and then we'll play the clip, okay?
Got it.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean. So I do want to bring up this part. So we talked about the Blind Mike part. The last part is the Essie Robinson, but the part that's so overlooked, and I totally had forgotten about it, how much Kirk hated Mutt at this point. He talks about him as a past friend. He talks about Mutt. He's openly asking for Mutt to be fired from EEI at this point.
Yeah.
He says they're not talking. I mean, he goes, this part of the episode, if you guys re-listen, lasts a good 5 to 8 minutes of Kirk eviscerating Mike Mutnansky. Like, absolutely throwing him under the barrel. I wrote here, and I quote, Kurt says, Carson and Kennedy are more talented than Mutt. He goes through Mutt's history of never drawing a rating. Every show that he's bid on loses ratings. He's been in every slot, in the radio. He calls the nighttime show that he's doing now with Andy Hart the worst thing he's ever heard. He calls him talentless. He says he should get a job at a car dealership, which is funny because that's what Kirk's saying now as well, too, that Mutt should be getting a regular job. But now he's doing it in a nice way. This is full on awfulness. And with the clip that we're going to play, guys, is bad. So they play a clip of Mutt and Andy Hart on Halloween drafting candies. Guys, this is so Mutt, I love you. If you re-listen to this, I love you. This is so fucking bad. I wouldn't do this on like my Talking Loud pod. Like, it's so hacky. It is fucking War of the Roses. Like, it's brutal. They're taking it serious, him and Andy Hart. So we're gonna play the clip because, like, I just found it. I
have him getting eviscerated now. Do you want the actual clip too?
Just actually,
I have him. Okay, I'll put that in post anyways. But yeah, I have him just getting.
All right, so play the part.
By Kirk. All right.
Yeah, go ahead, play that.
If you do it for saying this to for him, stick to sports. Like, that's what you suck at it. But you'll do it forever and you won't get fired. Just don't try. You suck at this. You're not a human being.
Be Dale Arnold.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's who you are. That's who you wanted to be until I came along and you realized, oh, but you get an audience that way. But you're not me.
Yeah,
it's like whenever I listen to Greg Hill's show and Chris Curtis tries to be me. He's not me. Don't be me. Just fucking do what you do.
What is it? Does Mutt was funny on your show
because of me?
But what I'm saying,
you think? All due respect, Mike. You think if I bring somebody else in here tomorrow, no one's gonna listen to this fucking thing. Not a human being will listen to it. Nobody's gonna give a fuck about you if I leave. Same as Mutt. People think Steve Robinson's interesting.
I wasn't arguing that.
I made Steve Robinson interesting. That's my greatest accomplishment yet.
Yeah, I wasn't insulting you. What I was asking was, is there something Mutt could do that he did with you?
No, of course not. I'm not there.
Right.
I'm not there.
All right.
He was kind of in orbit around you. Now that you're gone,
Jerry,
he's just flying off in deep space.
Yeah, I used to like the guy, but he sucks.
Right.
He shouldn't be working in radio. That's all. That's I don't mean to be.
Maybe he could work for Ernie Bach, selling cars.
You want to call anybody else to wish me happy birthday or not? Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, even Blind Mike is like, "Hey, sorry, man. Like, I'm not trying to, And if you re-listen to that part, Blind Mike takes a couple shots at Mutt too, calls him, talentless and stuff. Blind Mike was emboldened, I think, being next to Kirk at the moment. So it's, I'm glad their relationship has come full circle. They both admitted that at the time they had a falling out. Mutt wasn't listening. So to hear where they are now to where they were then is pretty interesting to see.
Yeah, and I love Mutt. I've always been a Mutt guy. I was a maiden voyage listener of Mutt and Merloni. And I think
as was I.
That was hard to hear. And this is one thing I kind of blocked out. I forgot about it because that's one where, I like when people play along well, when people I like, are getting along and things are good. I know it's more entertaining if they're not. But this is one, because you're right. I mean, that was coming from a real place. There was obviously an issue there. The fact that things are where they are now is great. Although, as we talked about the other day, it'll be great to see Mutt kind of break out of where he is and get to the next level. But yeah, I'd forgotten about that at that point too. The fact they had such a rough patch.
Yeah. Do you want to answer that, Danny?
Sorry about that. I'm at my in-laws.
That's the landline.
That's my in-laws landline. It's also their exercise bike, old CRT TV, and decorations from 1979.
Oh, I fucking love it. Landlines.
Stink, dude.
Yeah, fucking Oliver. Fucking Oliver.
This is what Oliver's left me with.
All right. So we're gonna get on to now the last part of the episode, last parts of this episode. One name I want to mention that was brought up on the show that I have no idea. I don't know if he's still around or not. I wasn't into who's SV Callahan? They talk about him for like 5 minutes on the show as a Twitter handle. He calls in and leaves a voicemail.
Old school Minifan completely abandoned Kirk. One of the 13 guys, I think.
Okay. Because like they talk about him as if he's like,
15.
He calls in and left a voicemail and they talk about it. And I had no clue of who this person was. So pretty interesting to hear that. And then Shaughnessy, Kirk drops a little Shaughnessy reference here. This is when he was going at Shaughnessy's kid. And I guess Kirk mentions that Shaughnessy called Jerry and had asked Kirk to stop making fun of his kid. And Kirk goes, yeah, that'll work. Like, that won't make it worse. Did you catch that at all, Danny?
I did. And the whole Shaughnessy relationship was always interesting to me because even back on Kirk and Callahan, as he alluded to, Shaughnessy and Jerry were, and I assume still are, very good friends, despite their differing political views. So it was always funny because you'd always hear about Shaughnessy going to Jerry to tell Kirk something. And as we know, like you said, that's only going to make it worse. Like it's the exact wrong way to approach it if you want Kirk Minahan to stop making fun of you.
So it's pretty interesting too to hear that Kirk and Jerry are okay at this point, but Kirk hates Mutt.
Yep.
That caught my attention really quick.
I'd kind of forgotten that too. I was thinking that he shut out Jerry when Jerry didn't have his back at his end of time at EEI.
And now he does mention that. He mentions that in this episode. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
But then that obviously gets worse into where it is now, up and down a couple times. And now Jerry's pretty much persona non grata, but at least Mutt's back in the fold. And if it's going to be one or the other, I'd rather it be Mutt. But yeah, the Shaughnessy thing always kind of cracked me up because you could tell at times Kirk, he's brought up Shaughnessy in a manner of respect at times over the years. Like, hey, this guy's been, because Kirk read his articles back when he was a kid about the Celtics. This guy is a Boston, sports journalism legend. But what he's resorted to the last few years has been just pretty much just shitting on fans and kind of being a dickhead. And Kirk continues to, I think at this point, not respect him.
So just a real quick side note, I met Tom E. Curran at my job yesterday. He was having lunch after Patriot training camp. And as he was leaving, I was like, hey, just want to know who makes up more stories, you or Greg Bedard? So I got him to chuckle. He found that funny. And introduced himself to me. He was actually a really nice guy. So I know Kirk shits on him a lot, but he actually took it well. He laughed and he chuckled and shook my hand. So shout out Tommy Curran. I got to give it up to you. He took the dig well. He didn't get all pissy.
That's one of those. So that's one of those names that I always liked him. I always thought he seemed like a nice guy. He seemed like a fun dude. I didn't know how much of it was maybe a facade. And then when Kirk obviously had that phone call with him where he called him some pretty nasty names, that really surprised me. And I was kind of bummed to hear that they weren't on good terms because I could see Tommy Curran as somebody who does play along and actually could be in on the joke.
He was really nice.
The fact that hasn't come to fruition in this world anyway. Again, maybe it's one of those things that behind the scenes it is totally fine. Maybe he is on the joke, but he just can't, pop his head up and acknowledge it.
Yeah. So another part of the show that I wanted to get to kind of end it was, John, do you have the BA phone call before we go into Essie Robinson?
Yes, sir.
All right. So this is my favorite phone call, my favorite happy birthday. Barstool advisor.
Message or no?
Ah, yes.
No, it's here.
See, one of Space's accusers died, by the way.
I did see that.
Wasn't crying that day.
Another one?
That's right.
There's two of them now?
This is Barstool Advisor, the warden of the North of Discord. My life goal is to document Steve Robinson's lies. Like when he said religious people are funny, but he couldn't take a joke about his parents.
Good point.
Happy birthday, brother.
I appreciate that.
Very nice.
Happy birthday, brother. Oh, fucking BA. Oh, BA. So listen, Danny, listen. To hear that, right, what a honk he was, okay? What a honk he was. You would never call in. That's Danny level honkism, okay? And then for him to be out in the wilderness for 3 years and pretend to be the bad boy, and in Portland, Maine, he's like, ooh, I wonder if Kirk will even acknowledge me. Like, you should have heard this guy, right? And now all he wanted, that fucking Canadian fuck, was to get his little belly rubbed and to be on the network and to be acknowledged. And now he's hosting Mike and the Minifans every fucking Saturday. He's, Mr. fucking clout mania right now after calling people clout chasers for 3 years. It was hilarious to hear him, be so ingrained in the world already and leave this fucking happy birthday voicemail. Happy birthday, brother. Ah, BA, you fucking, I love it. I love it, Danny. I love to see the fucking turnaround that these people have. And all he wanted was Kirk to love him. He just wanted daddy. He wanted daddy's approval. That's all BA ever wanted.
Well, and Kirk did love him at the time. That was the other funny part. I mean, there wasn't this not pretending he didn't know who he was. It was, thank you so much. But I think Warden of the North wants his name back.
Yeah, that was weird to hear that. Warden of the North, if they're the same person, that's wild. John, they're not the same person,
There
right?
is 0.0.
Okay. Okay.
They're the same person.
All right, because Warden of the North his voice has never popped up, whatever. So,
He sings.
Danny, good catch.
He sings songs. He does parody songs. He
okay.
never showed his face and
his face. Okay. Yeah. All right. So, because Danny, that's it.
fuck.
Yeah, I did catch that, Danny. I was like, oh shit, I wondered for a second. But yeah, that voicemail made me laugh as far as all these guys just wanted attention. That's it. They just want clout too.
I love BA, but that
I love him too. I love him too.
Really,
yeah,
really funny because it's definitely has been an evolution. But yeah, he's back in it now here right on the KM network, KMN network. Hosting like you said every week. Like
it hasn't been an evolution. He's right back where he started. Where he wanted to be, where he wanted to go. He's a fucking hero. He'd be an American hero if he wasn't taking care of fucking Canada for us. Fuck you guys, you tubbies, you fatties. He is a tubby too, though.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh come on, I'm president. I'm president of the Bandits. I fucking love you.
You're the bandit cap.
I'm leader of the Bandits, but like I just do like
to be called out for leaving one. I heard there's a sneakers happy birthday message too that never got on the show, but I would love to hear the big bad boy's fucking birthday message on this.
Yeah,
show.
that would be great. If someone gets their hands on that,
if someone's out there and you want to just randomly tweet that, you're more than welcome. So we won't
welcome.
We won't stop you.
All right, so Danny, we're getting into the last part because I got a hard out. I do have to go to work. Let's get into the last part of the episode, the last 20 minutes. Out of nowhere, Danny, I'm going to let you set this up because I feel like it's kind of your favorite part of the show. The show's about to end. We're 2 hours and 40 minutes in. And then out of nowhere, Danny, what happens?
So all of a sudden, Steve just starts talking about his sort of early life, 25, 26 years old. And then they start talking about how he was on this Russian show with Tom Hartman, who, according to Steve, is one of the most renowned liberals in the country. And just it didn't seem to make a lot of sense. It seemed a little out of place. And I listened back to this part a few times. I really think Steve, I could be wrong, but I feel like he's really trying to shove it in there. Like he really wants to play this clip.
Because he wants people to know it. Yeah.
As soon as he starts the clip, he gets introduced as Essie Robinson, and Kirk says, "Wait a minute, stop the presses."
The classic Kirk where he stops and starts breaking down video, which is my favorite Kirk. It's my favorite Kirk when he does that. Yeah,
he's like, "You are such an asshole." And Blind Mike even says, "I think Portnoy nailed this one when he just basically said Steve Robinson's a gigantic douchebag." Like
S.E. Robinson,
and it's his nom de plume, and he's like, "It was only a temporary nom de plume," and Kirk goes, "No, it wasn't. It's going to be Essie Robinson."
What a line. Nom de plume is a great line for a 29-year-old Maine American male.
And this is now, we sometimes hear Collinane's age gets called into question. This is when Steve Robinson's age gets called into question. Kirk says, "What, Danny, he's 77 years old?"
70. Danny, I'm like, he's lived 3 different lives, and I think he's still like right now 31 or 32. It's actually crazy.
I just listened to the MHB episode, and he calls Steve Robinson a 70-year-old in an 80-year-old's body.
yeah. So yeah, Danny.
Good line by MHB.
Yeah, good line by him. And MHB back in the world, as we said on Kirk's the other day. So yeah, Danny, what jumped out at you from Steve, from the line from Hartman? What really caught your attention? What made you giggle?
I giggled even. So start with Tom Hartman for a second, because I was thinking my recollection of Tom Hartman is, very stiff, very kind of newsman, sitting there with his, kind of an older man sitting there with his young minions who kind of either agree or disagree. He's got one that agrees with him, one that disagrees. But
very much a crossfire thing going on.
But he has this like wacky voice at the beginning of this clip, like, "Oh, how about Putin?" And I'm like, where did this come from? And the fact is, that's like the 10th funniest thing in the clip. Like, they don't really even call that out because they're so fixated on Essie Robinson. What I love
Steve,
is how, and Steve is so proud of it, and that's the best part. I mean, this is one of those things where I think it really clicked, where Steve, you get into his sense of humor. And where, yes, Steve by himself is not particularly funny, but when he plays into this, like, he realizes like he's an odd character, he's owning it, and he knows like this is going to make Kirk laugh. He's going to get jumped all over for it.
He leans into it.
But it's also a sneaky brag, like, "Oh, I was on this national TV show when I was 25."
Oh, he was proud of it. He was super proud of it, Danny.
He wanted that out there. He knew he was going to get shit for it, but at the same time, he's like, "Look at me, like I'm fucking awesome." And that's why
what was he was in Washington? He was working for a Washington D.C. think tank, right? Am I correct there?
This is where the D.C. sleuth. He called himself the D.C. sleuth.
D.C. sleuth. Yeah.
He was the deputy director of the Paul Revere project, and Kirk said,
"Oh my fucking God!
What's the head count on that staff?" And he said 2. So obviously there's a director and a deputy director. I mean, it's shit that just cracks me up. It's like, it's almost like a kid starting like a detective club or whatever. It's just,
yeah, it's crazy. Like he's the deputy. It's kind of like right now with the Main Wire, when he's got like 4 employees and he's the editor and chief executive director of the Main Wire. Similar sort of deal. It's
he seems
great.
to be. I mean, he seems to be doing well though. I'm all for Steve doing well. I enjoy.
Me too.
Enjoy seeing him out there. But yeah, but we're never going to really have that Steve back, I think, unless he comes back into the world fully. Luckily when we see him, when he pops on shows, he's still somewhat self-deprecating, still has a good sense of humor, still has that, caustic wit where he wants to cut on people, because that's the part that I miss.
Yeah. So agreed. It was very funny. It's the last 20 minutes. If anyone wants to just listen to that part, it's really, really funny. Kirk does his best. Like even Blind Mike does well here. He recovers from crying. I think Blind Mike and Kirk, when they volley back and forth, when they're breaking down clips and Mike's really into it, this is where Mike shines. This is where you could tell Mike is better at doing like the comedy stuff than talking about like serious topics, which is what they did a lot in the beginning of this podcast. With Kirk was still battling Murchison, so they would get into a lot more heavy political stuff, and this is where Steve didn't think Mike was smart enough to be talking about that stuff. That's the vibe I got. But when they did shit like this is where Blind Mike absolutely, would do really, really well and hold his own. Yeah, it was awesome.
And Mike has gotten better at that serious stuff too. And you just listen to his other shows and when he addresses, harder topics. But yeah, you could tell Blind Mike was so happy to have that deflection over to Steve. Like you getting called Vito in studio, and I kind of got to, sit back for a second. I'm like,
say it again, Danny. Say it again.
The heat's moved over for at least for now. And you could tell Mike was grateful to kind of end the episode on that note.
Yeah. So, and we're going to end the episode on that note too. I do want to point out too, so really quick, Menners. So a lot of controversy with Menners. He still doesn't get it. He did a show with John. He's basically he franchised. He says he's not going to do that. He wish he had called us first, whatever. Leave us alone. I heard the episode with him and John where basically he's telling John that we don't need John and John shouldn't produce and we should just do this on our own.
I heard that too.
Yeah. Leave us alone, man. Like if John wants to do this with us and we want to do it with John did an intro. He brings up clips. Like I'm just not good at this. I'm literally terrible at fucking technology. John's willing to help. Menners, just fucking leave us the fuck alone. Let us do the show. We're going to try to do a show once a week, but we never promise that. I want to point that out. He had said that every show should be at least twice a month. I think we've met that obligation. We definitely need to do a show this week because we were on the main show. It would have been crazy not to do one. So we jumped on here early. Right. So John's going to edit this up and send it over. Hopefully Menners releases it this weekend. But we're going to try to do it weekly, but we can't guarantee it. But we're at least going to do twice a month. Fucking leave us the fuck alone and just let us do this. Please. Go focus on other fucking shows. Go do Menners Live. We've got this. Leave us the fuck alone, I guess is the last thing I'll need to say. Danny?
And the uncertainty, well said, I'd say there, Dave. And I'd say and I took full responsibility for the weirdness on the timing this week. I had all the excuses in the world, but we're making it happen. And I'm glad we did. I thought this was a lot of fun as always. We're going to do these as often as we can. And if we can even knock out a couple recordings in a shorter session and then, get a couple in the bank, even better if we can get to that point. I think if Menners had reached out to us ahead of time, we could have had a conversation about it.
I still would have told him no. Would have told him no.
And I wasn't personally insulted by the idea. I think once I did have that separate, as he said, he called me. We did chat a little bit one-on-one. I saw what he was getting at, sort of saying, "Oh, we could build this into a huge franchise and whatnot. We could sit at the king, at the top of the hill." Where I do think, and what I'd like to do, and Dave and I have talked about this. This isn't new. When there are certain episodes where it makes sense to bring in a third person to talk about them, if they're either somebody that was on the show at the time or somebody who comes up, or just even somebody to sort of add a little color to that episode. I think I love to bring in other Minifans and have them, on the show at times, but I think we're enjoying being the co-host in this, Dave obviously takes the lead as the main guy. And I appreciate that. He's got that capability. I think as Kirk has even said himself, the show's pretty good as it is. We're only on episode 3. It could go downhill tomorrow, but let us crash and burn on our own if we're going to do that. So
leave us alone. Thank you. All right. So John, thanks again for getting up early and recording this with us. Fucking Danny, tell Oliver I said hi. I got to get ready to go to work. You boys have a great day. Kirk Minahan, thank you for having us in studio. Dave, thanks for having us in studio. Everyone have a great week, and we'll see you in Plymouth, hopefully. All right, guys, take care.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday.